Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Bruce, CMO at Agent Moves, and welcome to our Good to Great series. We're all about sharing amazing stories of top realtors and how they got there so we can make more realtors great. So let's jump in today with our guest, Anthony Butera. Anthony, thanks so much for joining us.
Of course, pleasure.
Hey, everyone that's been watching some of these videos knows that I love to talk about something different about the agent before we start talking about real estate. So let me give you a couple of good ones on Anthony. And he has some good ones here. So, he talked to me about kind of getting started, was a terrible student in school, worked in construction, for 12 years, was a sheet metal union, right? Had this thing rocking. And then as with all things, some things fell apart within the marketplace. He was looking to do something different. And I want you to tell the story about Googling, how you Googled when I asked you, how the heck did you get involved in real estate from this? But wound up using Google. And, to give you the quick story, he'll build up to this, but you guys are going to be listening to the number one agent in New York State with a team of 14 agents. So quite impressive in what Anthony's been able to do. And we're going to get into his story. So tell us about how it started, leaving and then, Google telling you what to do.
Yeah, so grew up in Rochester, New York, still live in Rochester, New York. And at that time, I was in construction and the local economy was in shambles. Nobody was investing in the city. There was no commercial work. And the union I was a member of, there was constantly layoffs. And I was 30 years old and I kept saying, you know what, there's got to be something more, right? And what was holding me back was my lack of education post high school. I had a hard enough time making it through high school. I was not a good student. I was never learning based. And so I had some time. I was injured. I just had knee surgery and it was like, wait a second. I don't want to do this anymore. I'm getting hurt all the time. There's never any work. When there is work, the conditions are terrible. So literally Googled uncapped income, no college degree. Real estate kept popping up. Then there was link 75-hour pre-licensing course. There was a link, click the link. At that time, the pre-licensing course was $400. I didn't have $400 to my name. And so I actually borrowed the $400 from my mother and took the online course. Google also told me save enough to live for 6 months before you jump right in. And I was doing side work. That's what I did. Google led the way at that time in my life. And in a lot of ways it still does. But yeah, that was my start. I went all in and failure was not an option because I was 30 years old. I wasn't 21 living with my parents. I had my own home. I had bills, right? So I had no choice but to make it happen.
Again, one of the great story. That's the beginning of the story. So,
Yeah.
knowing what you had to go through to get there. And again, it's life, right? We never know what life's going to throw at us. You can plan and here's what happens, right? And then
Yeah.
there you are with Google telling you, hey, maybe you should look at real estate. So, okay, you take the course, right? You've built up
Yep.
some income. Tell us about that first year, how you get started.
Yeah, so the first year I actually joined a team. The experience I wouldn't change for the world, only because it got me in front of more people than if I just jumped in completely on my own, right? And my first year in the business sold 57 houses, and most of those were like the second 6 months, the second half of that initial year, because it did take some time to build up a database and people to call. And yeah, so I gave it hell that first year. It was really before the lead gen game was getting started as far as like internet leads go, right? So most of the leads that I was able to procure were self-procured, and I literally used to call the white pages. I used to go through the white pages. I grew up in a big town, and I would recognize streets in my area, and I would call, and I'd have the same cheesy script. Hey, Mr. Jones, this is Anthony Butera, and I'm with such and such real estate company. Hey, listen, I know you're not probably looking to sell your home in the next 6 to 12 months, but I was wondering if you knew of any neighbors on your specific street that were looking to sell, because I have buyers that are looking to move into your neighborhood, as I'm sure you can understand why. And then really I was engaging conversations through that. And because I wasn't asking about their home, I was asking if they knew about any of the neighbors. And, it took a while to gain confidence and to actually exude that confidence where it was heard on the other line or the other end of the phone. And in time, I started to convert. And at first I dreaded making those phone calls. And then once my conversion rate hit, 1 out of every 100, and I stopped looking at it as an exhausting chore, and I started looking at it, was like, you know what, even if they say, Anthony, go to hell. If I convert one out of 100, my average commission is $2,000. And was like, wait a second. If they hang up the phone, it's like, okay, $20. Thanks. $20. Thanks. Because you knew eventually one was going to hit and you turn it into a piece of business.
I'm listening to you, right? And also, trying to look at you as a person, right? What you went through. You never sold anything. You weren't a sales guy. You didn't
Never.
know how to communicate with people this way,
Yep.
right? Really crazy within 6 months. First getting through the training, right?
Yeah.
Knowing the difficulty you had in school and whatever, look, I have kids with learning disabilities. You never know what it is, right?
Yeah.
Everyone wants to succeed, but we have our different ways of learning. But that
Yeah.
you got through that course,
Yep.
spent those 6 months, and then within 6 months sold 57 homes is, I mean, really, what a credit to what you've been able to do. And it makes sense why you're the number one agent in a team in New York State. So,
kind
yeah.
of kind of crazy, right? It's you oftentimes you look back and you question yourself, is like, could I ever do that again? And I guess the reality is, if I had to, sure, but I've been blessed in that I've been able to build business big enough where I have developed people that work with me, that are better at it than I ever was, right? So really, my success is truly through others, and that'll come out as we continue to talk.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely beautiful. Okay, so there's year one, you get going, 57 homes by yourself. Okay, how do you start looking at, year two, three in what you want to do? How do you set this up? Who are some of the first hires? And then I'll talk about the positive and negatives of building the team.
Yeah, so at that time of my career, right, I was entrepreneurial, right? And I was able to build through prospecting, through cold calling, and through growing my database. I was able to build more opportunity than I had time, right? So the my first hire should have been an administrative hire, but I had so many buyers at the time, and it was a buyer's market. And although you'd think, based on the market conditions today, where in my area at least, we're still in an extreme seller's market, the average buyer, although they had 12 houses to choose from that met their criteria perfectly, there was no urgency. Consumers were not urgent because they knew they didn't have to make an offer on that house. It was still going to be on the market 3 months from now and probably go through more price reductions. So that was a challenge. I was spending my days just on showing. So for me, my pain was not being able to show as many people houses that wanted to see them. So
Mm,
my first hire was a buyer's agent, and that buyer's agent's actually still with me today. His name's Steve Bentavania, and he's a massive producer on my team today, and he has agents within my team that work under him, right? So for me, it's just been the leverage game. How do I find leverage to create more time? And
mm,
with that newfound time early on, I wasn't looking to relax or jump on Netflix. It was just to create more opportunity and grow the team even bigger. So my second year in the business, I doubled my production, and it was through others. I brought others into my world, and my pain was somebody else's opportunity. And it's really been a step and repeat since then. So
mm,
year two and three, I was able, year three, I was able to double my business again by bringing on a second buyer's agent and just creating more opportunity. And by then, I was able to gain confidence in my listing skill set, right? And
mm.
at first, buyers were the conduit to my production and my success. So I just kept tapping into that. But once I gained confidence in a listing appointment, that's when my world really took off.
Wow. Okay, so tell us now, you get involved. Let's stay with that for a minute.
Yeah.
Let's stay with like what you did differently, let's say, to
Yep.
to win those listings, right? Because we know, and I'm sure it's the same in your market, right? Some of the crazy stats in this industry are
Yeah.
insane, right? 75% of people do not use the same agent to sell their home because they don't remember them. Right?
Correct.
80% of them only see one agent and give them the listing.
Yep.
Right. So tell me about how did you get involved in the beginning and start winning some of those listings?
Yeah, so I mean, I had to fail, and I was doing the same thing that 95% of other agents do. They talk about the same things, which is usually themselves, right? So I had to fall on my face enough times and lose enough listings to be like, well, wait a second. What if I did the total opposite of what other people are doing, right? Because this is not working. And I'm spending way too much time preparing to not convert. this isn't working. This is a failed business as far as the listing side goes. So I would, instead of talking real estate, I would try to avoid talking about real estate as long as I possibly could. I stopped forcing them to their kitchen table to get down to business, and I led them over to their living room. And instead of sitting in a hard wooden kitchen chair, I'd go into the living room, we'd sit in a comfortable couch. And instead of telling them how much their home is worth, by the way, the home I've never entered before and had no idea what I was walking into, right? To have the audacity to tell them, here's my comps and here's what it's worth, was like, well, wait a second, time out. Number one, let's establish how they got to that home, what the motivation was at that point. And a lot of people, they would start bringing up, well, you know what? We raised our children here. That home is a piece of their family. And when you can get them to talk about the history of their family and why it made sense at that time and why it no longer makes sense, you become an extension of their family in that conversation. So if you can get that close enough and build credibility and trust on their in their living room, on their couch, and learn that they bought this house, but now they want to move, they want to go down south because, their daughter just graduated from college and she's becoming a doctor and they want to move close to the area because now there's grandkids. When they start to open up and share that, there's a level of trust where the rest of the conversation, when it comes to pricing, you've already established that trust. You're not trying to gain it while you're having those conversations.
Okay. So did that come right from you in realizing how, like you said, something's not working, I got to change something, versus coaching and others giving you some ideas around this?
The brokerage that I started at, it was really everybody for themselves. And to be honest with you, I kind of subscribed to it only because it was like, well, you know what? I guess this makes sense. We're all independent contractors. The only agents that were there that were willing to share anything with me were agents that were like on their last few years. But the top producers that had top teams, I don't, for whatever reason, they didn't feel like they wanted to give out their secret recipe, or they thought that they had one, right? So I became that agent. It was like, wait a second, you got to hold this close to your chest. I don't want to share what's effective. But then I realized that, what good is this information that you can't hand it out, that
Yeah.
you can't hand out, right? And not only that, what I've learned over the years is you have to give everything away that you are doing, because the truth is only 1% is going to actually subscribe and run with it. And they're going to get it with or without you. So why not be a part of their journey?
You are spot on. We haven't talked, and this is not about, the company, that's why we're doing this, right? But
Yeah,
Agent Moves it's all about sharing wisdom, right? Stop selling. If you stop selling and you just start helping people and
yeah,
you give them as much as you can, right? You've seen Stacy at, I know you know of her,
yeah,
at, Mega Camp and at Family Reunion. And that is the strategy. Give it all away. Tell
yep,
me how to value up my home. Tell me all the things. I think she has like a 26-page book on all of
yep.
this, all the details you need. They can't do it themselves, but they know that you are now someone I want to work with because you know how to do this.
Yeah, sales, no doubt. Sales are the byproduct of strong relationships. And early on, I was only focused on the money because I had a scarcity mindset at that point. I was
Yeah.
broke, right? And it was amazing. The moment I stopped focusing on the money started to focus on me because I invested into my relationships. I built trust, right? And early on, I was dominated with buyers. That was the majority of my business. And as large as my team is today, we sell more listings than we actually do buy sides. And to me, that's where you get your margins back. That's a healthy business.
Yeah. Yeah. No, excellent. Excellent. Yeah. We're going to talk about scaling and growing the team in a minute, but
Yeah,
you've given some great nuggets without, just through the conversation, which is what we look for here,
sure.
right? And I don't care if it's a newbie, looking at videos, trying, we're focused on how do we have successful agents become even more successful, right?
Yeah,
What are the things that kind of got in the way of, getting to the next level? And I've had a lot say, they've tried to build teams, they're
yep,
doing Unreal as a solo agent,
yeah,
went to build this team, got away from their core business and stopped their own business. And all
yep,
of a sudden, like their income actually dropped because
yeah,
of the commitment to the team and so forth. And they felt like in their lifestyle, you know what, I don't need that. I can be a great solo agent with maybe one or two support people and have a great life. So
yeah,
to me, a great piece of advice from that case, very different kind of story. So
yeah.
now give us the you're building the team. So let's give people that are building teams maybe
Yeah.
one or two of the disasters that you have. How a disaster, you're the number one agent in New York State, but some
Yeah.
of the things that you didn't do right or as well as you would like to have at the time, and then came around, fixed
Yeah.
it, and started scaling.
Your ego is not your amigo. I'll start with that. Okay. And what I mean is, I felt more confidence, and it was a dangerous confidence. My ego was telling me because I found income success that I was the greatest at the business. I feel like I know less today than I did my second year in the business because by most measures, I was a successful top 1% agent already 2 years in the business. I made it, right? And I didn't realize all the gaps that I had in my business. And then I was purchasing internet leads and my margins were compressing. And it was like, well, wait a second. I don't want to get into this game. I don't want to give half my paycheck away to somebody that never showed that house or sat at that table with those sellers. So I had to stop spending money on that and reinvest it into the consumer experience. Right. And when you suffocate your ability to spend on human beings, which is a way higher ROI than an internet lead, it's impossible to scale, right? So for me, after I made my first hire, I realized that there's way more talented people than I was still to this day. And, I own brokerages. I have almost 1,000 agents within my brokerage between Rochester and Buffalo. I still don't know how to input a listing. And some people may listen to that and be like, well, that's crazy. That's irresponsible. No, I stayed in my lane and I just wanted to stay in my relationships. That was my strong suit. Anything else, I was not good at. Right. And I was enamored by hitting a seventh level in my team. I'm out of production. I spend a handful of hours a week within my team. I replaced myself. I'm not the CEO of my own team. I have a business partner in Jason Mancuso who took my business to the next level. A lot of times you're the person to grow it to a certain point, and
Yep.
somebody else is that person to bring it to that next level. So I would say to get out of your way physically, mentally as well, right? Because we are the biggest roadblock in our business. And I think it's really dangerous to think that you're the best at anything that you do. And if you do truly believe that, well, congratulations, you found your ceiling.
It's absolutely beautiful. I'd love to stop it here, but I need to go on a little bit more. I
Yeah.
love this. First of all, I love your ego is not your amigo. I'm not that's yours or from someone, but I wrote that one down. All right, so that's a gimme. We're stealing that one. So now, what are you going to do today? And again, great advice on building the team and knowing yourself more than anything. Right? There's no question. Knowing that like you said, you're not the CEO of your company. You brought in someone to help you get to the next level.
Yeah.
Right? Surrounding yourself with the best people. It's all about who the people are on the bus. Right.
Yep.
And if they're not right, they got to get off the bus. But that
No doubt.
includes you in knowing
Yep.
your spot on the bus. Right. You don't need to be the driver. So what are you looking at today now to scale? Like next step? What?
Yeah, so I think the biggest mistake up until a couple of years ago was I did not allow anybody to join my team without experience. I didn't have the bandwidth at that time to train anybody because I was still in production through 2021. I mean, in 2021, I wanted over 400 listing appointments. I did not have the bandwidth or the resources to bring in somebody on and train them. And after you lose a couple experienced agents on the team, you start to go, oh, wait a second. I need to open my eyes and I need to figure this piece out. And I was able to jump out of production because there was other opportunities for me that I had to divert my focus to, and hiring a listing agent in Tom Fox is on my team replaced me way better at listings than I ever was. So honestly, our success recently, and we're going to expand on, has been getting newly licensed agents. And I only ask that they're learning based and have a high sense of urgency. If you don't have urgency, I don't care how much you know about real estate or how talented you are, you're not going to make it in this business.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, we're going to end it there. I think it's great. Some absolutely fabulous advice. I can't wait to talk to you more. I love it. I love your energy,
Yep.
and I mean that's what it's all about. And especially when you
No doubt.
overcome, in life, just to overcome the things that were put in front of you, and
Yep.
to be where you are today. It's just such an inspiring story. There's no better way around that.
I appreciate
You got your Buffalo Bills going, and you
it.
got your business going. Life is good.
Life is definitely good. I'm a blessed man.
Yeah, thank you so much. Please follow Anthony on Facebook, on social media, and please follow Agent Moves as well. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. And until next time, again, Anthony, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.